Hi everyone, welcome to MMA at the Beginning, where we talk about the early days of MMA. My guest this week, I'm absolutely delighted to have. I mean, this guy was an MMA fighter before being an MMA fighter was cool. He's a product of the Lion's Den. He's King of the Cage, former King of the Cage, middleweight champion, Vernon the Tiger White. Vernon, how are you, sir?
Doing great.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. How's things been in the States, obviously with the lockdown and everything like that? Are you still keeping in shape? Are you still training? You obviously look like you're in good shape still.
Well, I'm not in as good a shape as Ken is because he's got his diet dialed in, but I'm doing my best. Yeah, I am. I can't say that I'm an officer, but I do work as a corrections officer. And yeah, it was almost like just something I felt like I needed to go into,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've clearly got the tools for it, and clearly no one's going to argue with you. I mean, if they've got any sense, but yeah, I mean, because obviously we were talking about that, because obviously the gyms are closed and stuff like that. What type of workouts people have been doing, and I actually found quite a good one to do because I play on my Xbox quite a lot. I get in modes where I get like really lazy sometimes, and I've been doing this thing where I'm playing on Just Cause 4, and every time I get killed, I've got to do 30 press-ups. And that's actually stopped me from going on my Xbox, if I'm honest, if I just keep to that rule, But,
Okay.
Like I say, when I was introducing, a product of the Lion's Den, I mean, that is just an incredible achievement as it is. Aside from the titles and the wins that you've had in your MMA career, tell us about how you got into the Lion's Den, because previous to that, you were doing Taekwondo, weren't you? I think you've done Taekwondo since you were 16.
I actually started Taekwondo at elementary school. I was probably around 5 or 6 years old when I started Taekwondo.
Really? Okay. Let me blame Bruce Beck for that, because I was actually watching one of your fights and he was on the commentary for it, and he said you started when you were 16, so I'll blame him for that one. Sorry.
Yeah, blame him real bad for that one. So I used to watch like Kung Fu theater, black belt theater, and that would come on around 1 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I would go out and practice everything that I saw, except for like the steel finger, palm fist, and stuff like that. I couldn't do that because I lived on a farm. And I mean, these were Shaolin monks, and I'm watching on TV. In my mind, I'm watching these guys, and it is real to me. So I actually got so good in Taekwondo that if I could reach my hand above my head and touch it, I could jump up and kick it. So that's how devoted I was to martial arts. And watching guys like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Bill Superfoot Wallace, guys like that. Even Don the Dragon Wilson, when that dude started making movies, and then they actually asked me if I would fight him at King of the Cage. I'm like, Don the Dragon Wilson? Isn't he an actor? I didn't realize that Don the Dragon Wilson was an actual fighter.
He was legit,
yeah, I'll fight the guy. Sure, let's do it,
Yeah. Well, because I remember Don the Dragon Wilson was doing commentary for the UFC for a bit, wasn't he? Along with Bruce Beck and Jeff Platnick. And you mentioned Bill the Superfoot Wallace. I mean, he's been mentioned, and I think just about every interview I've done since I've started doing this, because I interviewed John Dawson, who taught me martial arts, and he actually, he's met Bill the Superfoot Wallace loads of times. I mean, Bill the Superfoot Wallace, I mean, I think people forget he was actually friends with Elvis, wasn't he? Because Elvis was a 9th degree in Kempo karate or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, Elvis was a black belt. I don't remember how far he went because Elvis was not in my genre. But yeah, he Elvis, and then I remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually was a black belt with Bruce Lee. So there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about some of these actors and stars and like basketball players and stuff like that. They actually got into martial arts. And even now with like Royce Gracie and guys like that, people don't understand it. Some of these actors and stuff are actually doing stuff to keep themselves in shape, and it starts with MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, and stuff like that. It's not just a regimen of lifting weights and, you know, running.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I mean, MMA training, I mean, I don't do it as much anymore. I've never really been, obviously, nowhere near to a good enough standard anyway. But I'll maybe train once every other month now. And I'll have a roll for 45 minutes and I'm absolutely knackered. People don't understand the fitness and the intensity that goes into even just the training, you know, of MMA. It's incredible. So obviously, you know, you've been a lifelong martial artist. And also as well, it's interesting because I was talking to somebody the other day and we were on about Bruce Lee, and he was actually such a well-rounded fighter that people didn't realize, because his style, it was Jeet Kune Do, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually Jeet Kune Do. He started with Chinese boxing, and Chinese boxing only got him so far. And then when he started getting into movies, they actually just did a whole thing on Bruce Lee and his acting career and everything. And I bought his book, The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and I learned a lot of stuff from there. And people would look at me and they'd be like, "Where'd you learn that?" Well, I've been reading this book, Bruce Lee's. I mean, if you guys would go and read some stuff, there are stuff that are in books that it's been lost because nobody wants to open the book and look at it. And they're, "Oh, this is new." No, it's not new. If you look at the book, you'll see it's not new.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I was talking to someone who knows Eric Paulson, who trains a lot of MMA fighters now. I mean, he trained Brock Lesnar and people like that. And anyway, Eric Paulson knew Dan Inosanto, who obviously done the nunchucker scene with Bruce Lee, and I can't remember which film it was, but he done a nunchucker scene with Bruce Lee. And he actually put a book down in front of Eric Paulson and Rick Young, who's also a Jeet Kune Do guy, lives in Scotland, and it was the original. So this wasn't edited, this was the original. And that's when he found out that Bruce Lee was also, he had a catch wrestling coach. You know, he was doing Thai boxing. He was basically polishing the whole stone, you know. It was quite incredible. But talk about polishing the whole stone. Obviously, the Lion's Den was, well, like I said to Ken Shamrock, it was probably the first official MMA gym that was doing everything. So how did you actually get on to the Lion's Den? How did you find out about it?
I was teaching Taekwondo in Angels Camp, California. And this guy, his name was Papa John, he owned a boys' home. So he knew Bob Shamrock. So he told me, he brought me a video. I don't even know how he got the video, but he showed me this video. And then he showed me some stuff online. And it was Japan. And it was catch wrestling in Japan. So I'm looking at this stuff going like, yeah, I didn't want to do this stuff. I'm looking at these guys in tights. It was like it looked like pro wrestling to me.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these guys. I'm like, I don't want to be in some little tights hugging up with some dude. And that was my whole idea of what wrestling was, because I watched our wrestling coaches, and like we even had a girl on our team, and dudes wanted to get on the team just so they could wrestle with the girl. So I'm like, yeah, this not, you know, it's not something I want to get into.
Yeah. And then what made you get into it then? What sort of made you change your mind?
When they told me how much money I could possibly make.
Oh well, there you go. So when you so then what was your approach from there? Where you obviously found out how much money you could make, and then did you approach Bob Shamrock, because obviously, you know, that's Ken's father. How did you get into it from there?
Well, yeah, he gave me Bob's phone number, and then after I got Bob's phone number, I gave him a call, and Bob set up a interview with me and Ken, and I didn't realize that the interview that day was going to be me getting my butt kicked. So I actually ended up getting my butt kicked for half an hour by Ken, and then he made me do 500 push-ups, sit-ups, leg lifts, and squats, and clean the gym.
Wow, because it's funny because I read Ken's book, Inside the Lion's Den, and I thought that it was the other way around. I thought that you had to do like 500 squats, press ups, the run, and then he beat you up at the end of it all. So you obviously done it the other way around.
Oh, yeah. Well, he needed to basically knock off my rough edges first.
Right.
And that was one of the first ones with Scott Bazak. I believe it was Scott Bazak, Daniel Zuniga, and me and Ken, and we were the first, and James. I forgot James's last name though, but we were like some of the first 4 fighters that Ken brought in. And yeah, there was no 500 before. He beat the crap out of you. And then after you got the crap beat out of you, then you had to do your 500s, and then you had to clean the gym.
Wow, that is brutal. Because obviously when you get the crap beaten out of you, it takes your heart as well, doesn't it? So then obviously you sort of don't have any incentive to continue to work out, you know, from then. So obviously you passed the test to get into the Lion's Den. And I think it was more your mentality, wasn't it, in order to get past, to actually get into the Lion's Den. Then once you were in the Lion's Den, obviously Ken basically sort of, from what I gather, financed fighters' careers in order to get them into, well, was Pancrase. I mean, it was 4 months, wasn't it? You were training for 4 months with Ken before you had your first Pancrase fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He wanted to make sure that we were ready. And if we weren't ready, he wanted to make sure that we could at least put on a good show. And by putting on a good show is that we could defend ourselves. And it looked like he was training real fighters. But people also knew that he was pulling dudes off the street. He wasn't going to karate dojos. He wasn't trying to find the best of the best and then go out there and then like showcase them. He was trying to find just regular dudes off the street with attitudes, except for Scott Bazak. Scott Bazak actually played for the Raiders, and that dude was a big dude, so he already knew Scott had strength and talent, at least athletic ability. And then after just like grabbing us other guys, then it was like he had to search for what our talent was, and my talent was kicking people. So yeah, he had a knack for bringing people in and seeing what their weaknesses were, and then what their strengths were, and then building off of those strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I was watching your fight, I mean, I do remember watching your first Pancrase fight. It was against Fouquet, wasn't it? If that's correct.
I believe, yeah, in September 9th, 1993, Fouquet Yusuke in Tokyo Bay NK Hall, I believe.
Yeah. And I remember when you were fighting him as well, I actually thought you had the upper hand when it was coming to striking, because you kicked him a few times, you hit him with a couple of palm strikes, and I think straight away he just wanted to clinch you, didn't he? And then obviously that's when he got the takedown.
Yeah, before I had gotten into this, I had actually done Taekwondo tournaments. So it's not like I was a novice. I was a novice in the grappling stuff, but I wasn't a novice in stand-up. But I wasn't really that close to being a pro either. But yeah, my kicks were on point. I remember doing some spinning roundhouse kicks and hitting like Suzuki in the face a couple times. So
yeah.
And he took me down. So I mean, I wasn't a new guy, but I wasn't pro level yet.
Yeah, but I mean, it is. I mean, you must have been able to pick things up so quickly, because 4 months of grappling, you know, against these guys who have been doing it for a lifetime is sort of a massive difference, isn't it?
It's a huge difference because, I believe Suzuki had been doing his stuff, and he took all Japan in wrestling, and he had been doing it for 7 years, I believe. And some of the other guys, it had years to do this, and here I come after 3 months, 187 pounds soaking wet, trying to fight these dudes who've been doing it for a good part of their career.
Yeah, and that was another thing, I suppose, when because I watch fights from Japan, and then I watch fights obviously in the US or the UK, and in the UK and the US, all the crowd just seem to be rowdy. They're having a beer. They seem to want to shout out. You watch fights in Japan, they're just silent watching it. How did you feel your mood was? Obviously, because you fought in both. How did you feel? What was it? Was it some more nerve-wracking when you were fighting in Japan because of the silence, or was it the more nerve-wracking when you'd be fighting in the US or the UK or other countries where the crowd were a bit more rowdy?
I cannot say that. I liked it. I liked the fact that you can hear your cornerman telling you what to do. You can even hear their cornerman telling them what to do. So there was really no surprises. The only time you really got caught in a submission is if you weren't paying attention, or you were just, you know, not listening to your cornerman, or you just got tired and you couldn't move anymore. That's why Ken was so big on our conditioning. So as long as you could move, you could stay in a fight, and you could have a better chance of catching your opponent off guard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And something else as well, obviously, when you were fighting in Pancrase, one fight that you had in particular that I found so interesting was the fact that you fought Frank. And obviously you guys are both from the same gym, you know, which must have been very difficult for both of you, because obviously you both know each other's bag of tricks. So what were you thinking going into that fight?
It's about time. Because a lot of us, when Frank came in, some of us newer guys are looking at Frank like, how come this kid gets the Shamrock last name? He gets, you know, paid more money, and he ended up earning that, you know, even though some of us felt like we should have got a chance before he got it, but Ken knew what he was doing. So when he put me and Frank in there against each other, we did not hold back. Like in training, we held back because we wanted to make sure that each other were ready for the fights. But then when we found out that we were going to be fighting each other, we stopped training together.
Right.
Frank got phenomenally strong for that fight. And I remember just thinking to myself, I'm going to have to knock the crap out of this guy and try to knock him out. And I remember after the fight was over, he looks at me and he says, which corner is my corner? And I was like, that's when I knew that I had striking power. And to have my own teammate look at me and say, where's my corner? And I had to point him to the right corner. Even though he was stronger than me, I knew that I had to start working on my punches and kicks even more, because I wasn't doing the damage that I wanted to do. I felt bad because it's Frank. But still, I wanted to work on myself more because I needed to get that knockout power even more.
Yeah, I mean, because out of all the Lions Den fighters, and I'm not just saying this because obviously you're in front of me on the screen, I'd say you had the upper edge on the striking more than I'd say the rest of the guys. I'd say most of the guys were mainly grapplers, like, you know, Jerry Boland. Well, obviously Guy Mezger was a kickboxer, I think, originally before he went in there. But I mean, your kicks, I think, stood out more than anything, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I remember watching you fight in the WVC too. Was it your first fight, or your first fight you won with a heel hook, didn't you? In the Well Valley Judo Championships #2, and it was your second fight you hit the guy with a head kick.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but he fought with us in Pancrase.
Was he a Russian guy, wasn't he? The guy?
No, he was Dutch. He was one of Boss Ruten's guys.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I was watching that fight and I did see you kicked him in the head, and the ref stopped it. And then there was sort of a bit of confusion because this guy was making out that he was okay. He clearly wasn't, because, I mean, Christ.
Oh, we're talking about, I believe was that Richard Sarr?
No. It began with an O, his second name. I couldn't quite pronounce it because you fought Pedro Hizo in the final.
Okay.
You know.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the guy who was Dutch. Andre. I remember who you're talking about, but he was punching open hand, and I remember, didn't he push me out of the ring or something like that? And we fell out of the ring, and then when I got back in, I just took him down and got a heel hook on him.
That was the heel hook, and then I think it was the second fight when you won it with a head kick, and there was a bit of confusion because the guy was making out that he was all right, and he clearly wasn't, you know. And then you fought Pedro Hizo in the final. And that's what I found was such an interesting fight, because obviously Pedro Hizo's got brilliant leg kicks, and obviously your kicks are incredible as well, you know. So I was thinking, how's this one going to go? What were your thoughts going into that fight with Pedro Hizo? Because obviously you knew his strengths were similar to yours?
Damn, he kicks hard.
I was gonna.
Yeah, his leg kicks were like, and I trained with Maurice Smith, but Maurice, I believe, held back. Pedro had no reason to hold back. So those leg kicks were. I remember I had to, for about 3 or 4 days after that, I was still walking straight legged because I had took so much punishment in my legs. Yeah, but how can I explain this? He was probably 240 when we fought. I think I was somewhere around 220, 215. I was not that big when we fought. So a lot of the guys that I have fought have been naturally bigger than I am, because like even right now, I only walk around at 230. If I'm training hard, I will be down to like 220, 215. So, but I haven't been training that hard because I'm tired of looking so darn skinny, especially when I go to work. I want to look like I'm 232. I want to look like I'm 240 when I'm actually 220, you know?
Yeah. But I suppose that's what it was like back then, though, because obviously the WVC, that was the same, obviously the same rules as when the UFCs were very first starting, like UFC 1, because I think it was no eye gouging, no fish hooking, and no
kicking in the head on the ground, which is how I lost to Pedro.
Yeah. So was that so that was an illegal blow that he hit you with?
Yes.
Wow.
It was very illegal. And they even said something to me. They go, "We want to make sure that you're not kicking anybody in the head while they're on the ground." And then it happens to me. And they actually took, I believe it was 5,000 from Pedro, but I never got it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you not try and put a law? Because I could imagine, obviously, you know, if you were fighting out of the Lion's Den as well, surely Ken must have been really pissed off about that too.
Yeah, we were all upset. Frank was there with me, and Ken was more upset with Frank for not taking care of it. Yeah, I just remember after that fight, like there was a lot. I don't even remember getting kicked in the head during that fight. I remember putting my feet up and trying to kick him, and then trying to roll out, but he grabbed my feet, pulled my feet down, and then kicked me in the head. So, and it was a beautiful kick.
Yeah. But like they were calling, I mean, Bas Rutten calls them in Pride soccer kicks to the head, you know,
Yeah.
like how you can actually refer to someone's head as a football. That just goes to prove how brutal it was, you know. But yeah, absolutely crazy. Which sort of goes back to when Ken fought Dan Severn at UFC 9, and they said you weren't allowed to punch. And he said if you punch, you'll go to jail. And Dan Severn punched him about 9 or 10 times. You know, it just goes to show that some people just don't actually go by the rules. It's ridiculous, really.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem there was when they were allowed to punch, it was only on Indian reservations or in sanctioned areas. But then they fixed it so you could actually punch because the athletic commission finally came in. When the athletic commission came in, they made people start wearing gloves, and then they put a whole bunch of rules on it. So, yeah, before we didn't wear mouth guards, we didn't wear groin protectors. Some of us didn't even wear shin guards because we wanted to kick people as hard as we could. But yeah, with the athletic commission came in, that put a kibosh on a whole lot of that stuff.
Yeah, because obviously in Pancrase they had you had your boots on, you had your knee pads, you had your shin guard, and obviously your groin guard as well. So you looked like really tooled up, you know. But what else I found interesting was when you were fighting in those times was the fact that there was no weight classes. I mean, did that make you think, you know, I feel like I need to put more bulk on? Or did you feel that you had more advantage because you didn't have as much bulk on and you were leaner, you were fitter than your opponent?
Well, at first, I was just like, I don't care, I'll fight anybody. And then after being manhandled so many times, you got to understand where your weaknesses are. Like Ken says, you got to get stronger. If you're fighting a dude like Andre Van Utelar, 200 and something, like 80, I believe. And then I actually fought Remco Pardo over there, and he was in the 300s, you know. Me at 190 pounds, I had a hard time fighting these guys. Even though I caught him in a chokehold, I had a hard time fighting these guys. But after I actually got into a place where I could have my own weight class, and I wasn't even at the top of my weight class, because, like I say, some of these guys, they would 2-3 days before the match, these guys are weighing 230, and then they're dehydrating. And then, like, one guy I fought the night of the fight, he actually came in at 246, but the day of weigh-ins he weighed 208, and I actually let them. I didn't make a big fuss out of it, but the night of the fight, 246 pounds for somebody like me who walks around naturally at 220, you know, 215 while training, that's a lot of weight. That's a huge weight discrepancy.
It is a hell of a lot of weight, because obviously if you watch the first UFCs, it was basically grapplers versus strikers a lot of the time, and the strikers didn't know how to grapple. So I suppose you're at an advantage if you're fighting somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. But when it comes to, you know, fighting someone who's 30, 40 pounds heavier than you, and they know how to strike, and they also know how to grapple. I mean, you mentioned Remco Pardo. This is a guy who's, you know, he is a brilliant judoka and jiu-jitsu guy, you know. So this guy's, not only is he a skilled grappler, but when they are that heavy, do you know what I mean? It is difficult to try and, you know, get over that. But anyway, talk about King of the Cage. King of the Cage, you became middleweight champion then. So how did it come about when you started fighting in King of the Cage?
So King of the Cage came about. Ken came to me and he asked me, how would you like to fight for a title? But there's a small group that got a hold of us. Make a long story short, I said yes. And I had been fighting in Japan. I had fought in a couple other places. And so I kind of had a little name. At least in my thoughts, I had a little name. And then when I got there, it was like, holy smoke, this is California. This is Saboba Casino. This is my backyard. I'm going to have to come in here and, you know, I'm going to have to do good, right? So next thing you know, I found out my first fight was going to be Todd Medina. Well, Todd Medina was a UFC veteran and superstar at that time, and he was Carlson Gracie. Yeah. So, I mean, and the Gracies were coming through and just smashing people. So I'm thinking to myself, I've seen his fight, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're going to have to just bang it out. I have reach on him. I'm going to use my reach. And then we got this boxing coach, and this boxing coach was always telling us, small box. And so I'm getting my hands. And as we get to the fight, I just remember thinking to myself, this could go really wrong for me. Or this could go really well for me. So I have to get the mindset right now that I'm going to have to knock this guy out. And then I found out the day of that he went to Russia and he had won a tournament in Russia. Hands down, just beat the crap out of everybody. That pissed me off. I was like, wait a minute. I've been working my butt off. This guy went to Russia to take a fight in Russia, and that's disrespecting me and my skills and my school. You're done. So the first 9 seconds of that fight, I knocked Todd Medina out because I was pissed that you would think you could take a fight in another country, come back, get enough rest, and then fight me in my own backyard. It's over.
Yeah, because obviously what you said, you knocked him out early because you were basically pissed off about it. Did you find, obviously, that wasn't the right mentality? Like, as a general rule, that wasn't really the right mentality to have before you fight, get pissed off, because that's how you could make a mistake? Or was this just a case of, do you know what, fuck this, you know what I mean?
Well, when you're that angry about something, that's all you can think about. Yeah. All you think about is especially in fighting, because if you look at any fighter's face, when they go in there and they know they have trained their butt off and they are working hard, and then somebody disrespects them, it's like all bets are off.
Yeah.
All bets are off. If I was going to be a nice guy and back off of you because I knocked you down, not anymore. Now the ref is going to have to pull me off of you because you disrespected me and you disrespected my whole camp.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you had four was it four title defenses as well when you were King of the Cage middleweight champion, and then after that, I think you fought Jeremy Horn, didn't you?
I fought Jeremy Horn. He did the lay and pray, and yeah, I ended up losing the title.
Yeah, and then it was within, I think, was it 3 weeks you were in the UFC?
Yeah, I actually took Ken's spot to fight Ian Freeman. I think that I don't know. I think he hurt his knee or shoulder, but yeah,
I think he blew his ACL actually. Well, that's what I gather. You know, I've got to say that was a hell of a fight with Ian Freeman that you had, because I do remember watching that fight, and you literally didn't have a lot of notice before then. I mean, so how long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. Because obviously normally when you're training for a certain fighter, you're in your camp, do you know what I mean? And you're training for how this person was fighting. How did you adapt to fight Ian Freeman then? Because obviously you only had a short space of time.
Well, I mean, I knew who Ian Freeman was. Everybody knew who he was because he had come in there. He was a heavy hitter. When you're working with a heavy hitter, you got to move your head. You need foot movement and kick. Every chance I got, I was kicking Freeman. You know, I didn't want him to get so close. There was even a part, it was actually one of the highlights of the fight where he was rushing in on me and I ducked every one of his punches.
Yeah,
and then you hear the scream. I'm like, oh, wow, that was for me. Oh, cool. I thought it was for Freeman, but no, that was for me. And yeah, it was a cool experience being able to get in there and then to have a draw with him. It kind of upset me because I've gone back and looked at the fights. I've had other people look at the fight, and they were like, dude, how did he win that draw? And I mean, not me to take anything away from Freeman, but I believe that I got more power punches than that guy. But, you know, I was kind of like the redheaded stepchild. So.
Yeah, it was interesting, actually, because I was actually going to ask you how you felt about the decision.
Yeah, well, I believe they said it was a draw. So,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, it was a draw. So, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Because like I said, I felt like I outmoved him. I felt like I out power punched him. I was busier on the ring. Even when he pushed me up against the ring, I was throwing knees, throwing elbows, throwing punches, even from the ground. You know, I felt like I outworked that dude. And I mean, we both had bruises and stuff for it. And I remember after the fight, I walked up to him. I said, look what you did to my face. And he's like, look what you did to my face. He pulls his glasses off. I was like, wow, I didn't see all that during the fight.
Well, that's it. Well, it's funny because Ian Freeman literally lives about 40 minutes away from me. He lives in, I think, Sunderland, and I'm in Hartlepool, which is North England, you know. So when you spoke to Ian after the fight, obviously he was a cool guy with you, because obviously when you were having that bit of banter and stuff like that, that's one thing I've never asked an MMA fighter, actually, is after the fight, generally, are you sort of pally? Do you go for a beer after the fight? What's the sort of, what happens there?
Well, that depends on the fighter, because there are some guys, like when the Gracies first came out, they hated you. You can't go hang out with them after the fight's over, because it was just one of those things. Is like they were very aloof, and you know, I don't know if it was because of the language barrier, but they thought, I don't know, like maybe it was disrespect if people like walked up to them, but you could see the difference in if you were going to fight one of them and if you weren't going to fight one of them. Because I had met Kenzo, stellar guy, great guy, never had a problem with him a day in my life. Yeah. I met, I believe it was Hoyler in Abu Dhabi, and it was funny because I expected him to be like his brothers, and he was nothing like that. He's a great dude. We talked and joked around and stuff like that, but we also weren't in the same weight class. So,
Yeah.
And then I finally got to meet Hoist, and it was weird because hey, how you doing? And he's tight-lipped, nothing to say. I'm like, okay, I will chalk that up as to being one of Ken's guys, But like I say, it's more the fighter than it is like me, because I will talk to anybody. Like I even walked up to talk to Tito. Tito and Ken were in the same restaurant. I'm like, Tito, are you and Ken gonna get along? And he's like, is the old man here? But yeah, he's here. Well, as long as he's cool, I'm cool. All right.
Yeah, really. So was this after the third fight that Ken had with Tito, or was this like before they started having this conflict with each other?
I believe it was after the second fight, because I was fighting who was it? I was fighting the WEC. I fought Jason Guida, and then I fought Alex Stiebling. I believe it was after my Alex Stiebling fight that it was they were in the restaurant. Yeah, they could care less about each other. So
yeah,
I was cool with that.
Yeah, because I was going to say sometimes it must be difficult, because if obviously you get on with someone who's from another camp, and then obviously they don't get on with your coach or another fighter who you train with, but you obviously didn't seem to make it awkward at all. You just were like, fuck it, I'll go and talk to anybody,
Right. With everything that's happened to me in my life, and I don't want to bring up racial stuff, but with everything that has happened to me in my life, I have learned how to not just pass judgment on people because they're from another team. You never know. There could be one day you might need to, like when we brought in, Ken actually brought in the Hammer, Mark Coleman. He was training with Mark Coleman. But
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, but for a while, it's like nobody wanted to talk to anybody. But then we started cross-training and different things like that with different people. And it was because you actually opened your arms and said, hey, let's do some cross-training. Let's talk to people. Let's branch out. But then you still had those guys that you hated. And like I've never wanted to hate another fighter just because he was a different style or something like that. But when we're in the ring, that's cool. We can beat the crap out of each other. I don't really need to talk trash to hit you, but we can beat the crap out of each other. Then after we're done, whether we have a beer or not, that's fine with me too.
Well, yeah, as I suppose at the end of the day, it's just competition, isn't it? I remember Dan Seven was saying before he fought Mark Coleman, I think it was UFC 11, and he just said, look, he said, I don't have any animosity towards anybody. He said, to me, it's just competition. And I feel like that's your frame of mind when you done it.
Right. That's how it should always be. We should respect each other outside the ring, beat the crap out of each other in the ring. Then when it's over, respect each other again. It's not like we have to take this to the parking lot. This isn't,
it's not like you've already had a fight. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And like I have seen some other guys that have actually got their guys together and tried to jump other people. It's like, are you kidding? Didn't you get enough in the ring? I mean,
really?
Yeah. It's bad sportsmanship. I think people who do stuff like that should not be allowed to fight. And I understand some of them make a lot of money for the companies, but still, that kind of stuff should not be allowed.
Yeah. How do you feel now about the UFCs then? With obviously I think it was Chael Sonnen who started off the trash talking, and obviously Conor McGregor now. I suppose he's the king of trash talking. What are your views on that?
Well, trash talk sells fights, and I understand that. But there comes a certain honor in yourself and how you should be showing respect towards other fighters when you trash talk. You don't bring people's family into it.
Absolutely not.
You don't go outside of and throw shit through excuse my language, throw stuff through windows and hurt people. You are going to get your chance to demolish that person in the ring. Bide your time, be respectful, beat the crap out of them in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not good because this is where I I think I enjoyed the earlier days of the UFC more so than I do now. I mean, I'm still a huge MMA fan. But like you say, when you see that type of thing happening, I'm like, come on. It's disrespectful. It's, you know, like you say, save it for the cage. Because then obviously it's sort of turned into a sort of reality show / professional wrestling, even though it's not scripted. Do you know what I mean? With regards to storylines, you know? But yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I think as well, you're training with the Lions Den. I think from day one, Ken is massive on respect, isn't he?
Yeah, he's we've had a couple times where there have been guys, and because I'm so laid back, they have basically disrespected me in front of clients. And when Ken got a hold of that, why didn't you kick his butt? You know? I don't know. Get in the ring. Ken made me beat down Tony Galindo for 50 minutes. I beat him down so bad that Tony was like, dude, just hit me and knock me out, please. I'm like, no, I'm here to punish you because you were disrespecting me in front of people. I'm not, you don't get to just say, hit me and knock me out until Ken. No, this is punishment.
That is awesome. You see, I love that because I bet my mortgage on the fact that that man would never disrespect anybody again after that.
You know, because we were friends, he'd still get his little jabs in, but for the most part, he never got to the point as to where he was cussing me out in front of people. Because he knew that there was a chance that we could get back into the ring and do the same thing again.
Yeah. So what was your your day-to-day training regime in the Lions Den? What did that consist of? Because you're laughing. Here we go. This is going to be interesting.
Well, there was no day-to-day because Ken would he had so many people in his ear that we would have our training would never be the same day-to-day because we'd have to do body weight calisthenics. We'd have to do there was a guy who was training people for college football, basketball, stuff like that, volleyball, and we were doing that kind of stuff. On top of people like Maurice Smith coming in and teaching us how to kick more efficiently. People like Oleg Tokhtarov coming in and teaching us how to use our biceps and pecs so we could do our Achilles locks or our heel hooks and stuff like that. So we had a wide array of people coming in and teaching us new stuff. And I believe that's what helped us to get on top and stay on top for so long.
Yeah, because obviously you've got to have, and I mean, I think this is what they do now. Obviously, you've got your MMA gyms now, but then they do get people in, don't they? I mean, I suppose they call them fight camps now. Whereas I think back in the day when you guys trained, it was just literally we just train. We don't have a certain amount of time before we train for a fight. This is just what we do. We turn up, go to the gym, and this is what we do, you know.
Right.
Let's talk about because one of the other fights that I saw, and I was actually a bit gutted for you actually, because when I watched the fight, I was just like, this is one of the best fights I've ever seen. Was when you fought Chuck Liddell. I was just like, fuck, this is back and forth. But one thing I was wanting to ask you was when Chuck, you basically, there was a point where you could see Chuck was thinking, this guy's got me here. Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Chuck was looking at the clock before.
I think he looked either at the clock or at his corner. And right after he looked at them is when I got eye gouged. And I'm not going to hold my punches. I'm not going to hold back. I got eye gouged. It took $38,000 to fix my eye. And then on top of that, before I got eye gouged, I had actually broke my hand. So I broke my thumb in that fight. I did an overhand left. I hit Chuck. I stunned him. You can actually see his eyes roll. I have that picture on my phone. And my wife has that picture she had it on her phone too. But yeah, I stunned him, broke my hand, kept fighting, and then I got eye gouged. So I think what hurt him was my kick. I kicked him in the ribs, and then you actually see him block his ribs, and then he goes, and then next thing you know, I got eye gouged.
Yeah. So when because you threw, I think it was a jab, and he threw a cross at the same time, and that's
because I broke my left hand, so I was southpaw, and I threw a right jab, and then it just came in perfectly, got me in the eye, this eye.
So that's what it was. That was it. It was an eye gouge. Then that's how he beat you.
So the thing is, he punched like this, instead of like this, and this is what went into my eye. These fingers went into my eye and down. I actually have the X-rays or the CAT scans of how it slices through the head and goes back, and you could see where the actual finger went into the eye and down into the bones.
That is brutal. Absolutely. But did they not did the Athletic Commission not look back into that and say, well, hang on, he actually did that? Because they do say, Aruba, it's a closed fist.
Right. Now, I don't know what the Athletic Commission was doing, but I know that there were 5 people who got eye gouged by Chuck. Then, after that happened, Chuck was knocked out 5 times and then a 6th time because honestly, I think karma is a bitch.
Absolutely. So who were the other fighters then that happened to?
Jeremy Horn. He even eye gouged, I think it was Randy Couture. And then there was the Brazilian guy. He eye gouged Tito and the Brazilian guy. My wife is coaching me in the background because she remembers some of these fights too.
Oh, really? So your wife trains as well then?
My wife, actually, her first one of my fights to watch was the one with Chuck Liddell. And she was very upset because she didn't have any ring passes or anything. So I was rushed off to the hospital. They didn't tell her what hospital I was going to. So after that, she actually became a bigger part of my career than any other woman that I've ever dealt with. So she learned out who the athletic commissions were. She would make phone calls for me. She's even gotten me sponsorships in the past. So,
wow, brilliant stuff. Awesome. It's interesting when you talk about the athletic commissions now, because obviously you started with the drug testing and stuff like that. When you fought in Pride, I heard Eddie Bravo talking to Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's podcast. And apparently in the contract for Pride fights, they were more or less, they were sort of subtly encouraging you to take steroids, so to speak.
I had Shamrock, he always went through my contracts. I went through the gist of it, but there's a lot of it that I did not read because I was young. I was stupid. But I always figured that people who are reading your contracts have your best interests at heart. But anyhow, I never read anything like that. But I mean, of course, there were people taking steroids. You could look at them and tell. I mean, when a dude's arms grow 6 inches, there's no way that's freaking humanly possible.
No, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that I haven't taken them. I have taken them in the past, but it wasn't one of the things that after watching so many injuries of some of these guys and then seeing, how they're ripping stuff and then breaking bones and, that's not something I want to do. I want to have a good long career. So, I steered away from as much as I possibly could, but when I was hurt, I would take that. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel good. After getting hit by a car in 2004, some friends of mine gave me some HGH, and within 9 months, I came back to King of the Cage where they weren't doing any testing, and I defended my title, and I won. So I'm not saying that I've never used, but I am saying that, there's been some times where in my career where I'm looking at stuff going, I'm sick of watching these guys get ahead. So now it's my turn. I'm going to start using and see how far I could go.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you know that other people are using, I mean, I was talking to Ken about this as well, actually, and he basically said on that show that Bass Rutten and Kenny Rice used to host. I can't remember what it was called now. And he basically just said, let everybody take them.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You know.
You know what? Honestly, as long as I don't know why they don't allow people to use them, for the simple reason it gives you a better show. And not only does it give you a better show, your athletes are stronger, their willpower is more. I don't know, like I remember when I fought Ian Freeman, and Ian Freeman made this comment, so I know it's true. He hit me with a flying knee. I shrugged it off and smiled at him. And I'm like, I couldn't have done that had I been natural, you know? But that dude, he was a champion, and I was the king of the cage champion. So, I mean, I couldn't go out there and just get demolished by this guy. So, yeah, I defended my title, and it was a good fight.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think now, obviously you, Sadra, are doing the testing and this, that, and the other, do you think that now that there's fighters sort of still taking them, but then they're taking other supplements to drown out the testing?
So there's all kind of stuff out there now that wasn't, I mean, it was there, but it was quiet, hush hush, like SARMs. SARMs are selective androgen receptor modulators. That's what SARM stands for. And they were actually made by a doctor, because his wife had a wasting away disease. Now, these things can be out of your system anywhere from 1 to 2 days, but then you still have the benefits of them. You can take them. Some of them you have to cycle like steroids because they're strong. They'll take down your testosterone levels. And that's why you see some of these guys, they look jacked, but then they have their testosterone levels checked and their testosterone levels are low because they're taking this stuff or they're taking steroids. So there's a science behind all that stuff. And as long as, I mean, you could beat, like they have some of these tests to test your testosterone levels, and then doctors will be perplexed. Why is this guy's testosterone level so low? Oh, he must be taking steroids. No, he's not. He's probably taking SARMs. And then the SARMs has dropped the testosterone levels, but they don't test them like they're steroids because they're not steroids. You can't. They work on the testosterone receptors like testosterone, but they're not testosterone.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what I've heard is it makes you just recover quicker. I mean, I think the only thing I tried was when I was going to the gym, is a friend of mine who was ripped and jacked as well, to be honest. And he says to me, I says, well, look, I said, I don't want to get bigger. I says, but I just want to get a little bit ripped. And he gave me some clenbuterols, and I took half of one, right? I went to the gym. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was like, I thought there's no way I'm touching them again.
That stuff is for hardcore people who have to lose a lot of weight real fast. Clenbuterol is in the same category as a steroid, but what it does is it basically speeds up your metabolism. But if you have heart issues, high blood pressure, if you have high stroke tendencies, you don't want to take that stuff because that kind of stuff will put you in the hospital.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, I took half of one. And some people, I mean, a friend of mine who was taking them, he says, oh, yeah, he said, I take 2 a day. I was like, what? I was like, are you asking for a heart attack?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Vernon, sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, some of these guys that take testosterone, they have to go and donate blood because their red blood cells, their count is so high. You know, so it's not something that you want to do if you don't know what the heck you're doing. Because you, like I say, you could end up stroking out, or you could end up with a heart attack. You know, you have to be careful. I mean, if you can find something that is a more natural way of going, like I'm taking natural stuff now. I'm not really, besides supplements, I'm taking a natural, like topical, and I'm not taking a testosterone. I'm actually taking a HGH secretagogue, which is a topical. So that's for another conversation. But you just gotta make sure that you're not playing with your blood pressure, because you could end up going into the ring and getting punched and not knowing that you got a brain bleed, going to the hospital. Next thing you know, people die in the hospital. Why? Because they didn't realize they had these underlying issues that are not being checked out properly.
Yeah, it's really scary, isn't it? But then, like you say, I suppose if you're doing it and you're seeing a doctor and you're doing it that way, and you know you've got a doctor examining you, then that's, you know, I suppose that's fair game, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It's fair game, but as long as if you have a prescription for stuff, use it, because that's what it's for. It's for you to be using. But if you don't have a prescription, then you need to start looking into it, start talking to doctors, and getting yourself in prime peak condition. Like, some guys that can afford it, some guys they can't. I couldn't afford it. So that's why I did the illegal stuff. But now that I know that there's more legal stuff out there, I push that stuff. Anytime a young fighter comes to me, hey, dude, try this, try that, you know? So, but it's all legal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, Vernon, this has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, obviously, we've sort of sidetracked and talked about other things, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Obviously, a product of the Lion's Den just explains it all about how successful you've been as an MMA fighter. And not only that, you're a gentleman, you're a very humble guy, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it was my pleasure. If you want some more dirt on people, let me know.
Well, definitely have to have you back on then. Thank you so much.